Oh, figured it
Oh,
out.
you want to sow chaos, you could do a at everyone.
Did we press the start the event button? Oh yeah, it's
Yeah, I
live.
did.
Nice. Look at us using our own features.
Oh, I should open up this.
I thought this was supposed to send a push notification. That happened?
You have push notifications enabled for Discord?
We're gonna have a talk after this. Feel like it should. I'll ask Rick and them later.
Yeah. Hmm. I think this is the first time I've used my watch's breathing mode.
So some people got a push notification, but I didn't get a push notification. I don't know. Discord's hard to use.
Oh.
Okay, let's just give people a couple minutes to trickle in.
Cheddar from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is an amazing dog. I agree, Chicky.
$500 people. Is that enough to start?
500 people?
Does that make us feel good enough about ourselves to kick it off? Yeah, I think we can start rolling. All right, Jake. Rude.
What did Jake say?
I just came from another 500 person stage channel. I had to drop off of that one. I was
True.
I had to practice a little bit. Oh wow,
Oh, that's fun.
that's a good. Huh.
Oh, you know what? Are we in stage discovery?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, that's probably what happened. I think people probably came in through that. Oh, that was
Nice.
fun. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's dealt with. All right, shall we get going?
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the DDEV stage channel. So just a heads up before we get started, we're recording this session, so you don't have to, you still can if you want. You can share it if your friends missed it afterwards. We'll post it. So my name is Ian, I'm an engineering manager, and I'm joined here by Mason, the product manager for the bots and API team at Discord, along with pretty much the entire bots team and about 500 of you. And today we're going to have some fun. We're gathered here for some updates on some of the latest stuff that engineers on the team are building. And we've narrowed it down to 4 big changes that we've been cooking up. We've managed to get 3 Discord engineering staff in here. And then there's Mason. And together they will talk through some of the changes that we're making. And it's honestly very exciting to me just to be able to straight up present our work to the whole community. This is something that we'd like to do more of earlier. So something to remember is that the people you're hearing from today are developers just like you. Some of them were actually hired from the community. You're going to see bugs. You're going to see stuff that is work in progress. We're not showing off completed projects today. And you might hear about some of the challenges that our engineers encountered, their blood, sweat, and tears, such as the path that we choose as developers. There's only one problem with all this. We want to show you the things that we built, but we're in a stage channel. So you have 2 options. You can close your eyes and imagine what we're talking about, or you can follow along in the stage info channel where we'll be dropping links to demos and docs and other stuff. So all the visual stuff and the stuff that you can read and play with are going to be in the stage info channel, in the stage discussion channel. So I don't want to spoil any changes. I'll let them take it away. We're going to go through these changes first, and then we'll follow up with Q&A from user-submitted questions. So that's it. Is there anything that I missed, Mason or anyone else up here?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, so first up, confusingly, is another person named Ian. He is working on big upgrades to the attachment user experience. So Ian, I will let you take it away.
Right. There are a lot of you. So I know I speak for myself and a couple others today when I say it's kind of the first time we've had to do a presentation to this many people. So little nervous. Bear with us a little bit. But hello, everyone. I'm Ian too, also known as Desh, and I'm here to talk about uploads. So I know everyone is attached to uploads and slash commands, but here at Discord we have a bigger image that they're part of. So let's file away the slash command portion of that for a second here. No, but bad puns aside, I kind of do want to talk about file uploads more in general than just through slash commands. We know you've been patiently waiting for kind of the option type and all of that, but I kind of want to talk a little more about the process Discord has. Hold on one second, that was the wrong video. And kind of how we've developed this feature in general here. So when when we kind of start these projects, we kind of break them into pieces here. We have the API side of file uploads, and then there's the UI side of it. And with slash commands, one of the big promising things that we do as a team is we make this UI integrated and first party in the client. And a big part of that UX is having that built-in flow that's very crisp with a K. So all of our projects, we kind of start with discussions here. And we talk about, how should these work? Do we want them to be kind of how they are today, where they're attached as part of the message alongside the message content, or do we want them to be in a field itself as part of a type? Ultimately, through that discussion, we decided that the type made more sense. And then, the discussion kind of goes into, okay, well, how does the UI flow work for that? Do we want to make it open the image attachment modal? Do we want it to display any user information like alongside the message? And through different mocks and iterations, we kind of realized like that attachment modal was creating a lot of friction. We felt that if we instead kind of attached files to the chat input in a way that stickers do or the mobile Discord client did, things felt a lot cleaner and just more was communicated to the user. Their attention wasn't being pulled in different spots. We weren't kind of pulling them around all these different sides of the application. Like, your focus is on the message authoring experience. So through that, when we started to work on that, we realized that this was true for not only slash commands, but just users in general. This UI was actually really nice, and we wanted it for just general users. So one of the really kind of neat things about Discord is we have a culture with very few boundaries, where we're able to, well, maybe barriers is a better word. All right, we have a culture with very few barriers to what we can go in and actually like work on. So we were able to take this idea and run with it and actually like go to implement it for regular users and their day-to-day uploads. And I think that's a really neat part of working at Discord, is that we're empowered to go in and do this. It's not like the messaging team owns this, so they would be the ones to go in and implement it. And our team is, very restricted to slash commands. I think the culture is more that we all have ownership over the entire product, and if it makes sense to go in and work on this area, we're encouraged to do so. And you can see in the videos I uploaded, like that's kind of what we've done here. And we're also able to do more than just that. So as part of this changes, we realized like, okay, we can actually pull in a lot of long-standing user requests here. We've heard from a lot of people that they wanted the ability to add image alt text descriptions, or maybe mark an image as having a spoiler on mobile, not just having to use the file name hack. So we started to pull in those things as well and include them as part of this work. Yeah, so in the videos I share, there's 3 different spice levels there, depending on what you're looking for. You can kind of see what we've done here. We've added this new UI for the main user flow, where people can upload multiple attachments now. They can add alt text to images. They can go in and mark things as spoiler. There's all these great integrations. And then the next step of this process is now, okay, let's take this new UI and now plug it into the slash command experience. And I think you can kind of see how it will attach a little bit, but like the pills will match up to these attachments, and we'll have a much kind of cleaner integration there. And I think the UX will be a lot stronger for it than having to go through the upload modal, or having your direction and your attention pulled all these different places in the app. So in the videos, you'll see, like, as mentioned, these are work in progress features. So there are a couple of bugs or inconsistencies there. But for the most part, it's now functional, and we're just trying to polish it up, get it out. And then the integration between the API and the actual UI here will kind of begin, and hopefully we'll get that out soonish. But I think this feature in particular is really just a cool case study in how Discord teams kind of go from discussing a feature, how best to get it to work, to actually getting into implementing it, and pulling in different areas of the product that can be better outside of your team's scope, outside of maybe slash commands in general, but how the bot team work can impact the client as a whole. And I think that's pretty cool. Discord encourages kind of product ownership as a holistic thing, not just like feature ownership. And it's just one of my favorite parts about working here. That's about all I have to say on it, I think.
Very cool, Ian. Another great accomplishment for Ian's around the world. We got a question about whether alt text is going to be retrievable via the API.
Yes, so it will be. It'll be part of the attachment objects. They'll have a new field there. We're still working out some of the details. The final API PR is up right now. Got some feedback on it, working through that, but hopefully we'll have more information on that soon. But yeah, should be fully functional for bots as well as users, which I'm super excited about.
Awesome. Well, we can't stop now. We're gonna keep moving on. Next, we're gonna hear from DevSnec. So they are working on an awesome new slash command option type, and I will let them say the rest.
Hello, everyone. Let me just post my links here in stage info. Um, so I have been working very hard on a new interaction type for auto-completing options. Basically, this comes from a very common feedback we have about how many options you can have for uh, application command choices. And basically, we want to allow that to be expanded infinitely, really, in a couple of ways. So we want you to be able to have lots and lots of choices, obviously, and we also want you to be able to allow users to discover these choices. So for the immediate time being, we are only addressing the first part of that. So basically what we have done is we have a new interaction type, which allows you to basically, as the user is typing, instead of you sending up a list of choices in the application command create, as the user types, you will receive interactions with the content that they've typed, and you can respond to that with a bunch of choices. And that's basically the feature in a nutshell. And so there's a video demo in the link, and as well as there's a server where you can try out the command if you want to see more of that. And basically, yeah, that's what we're trying to enable. Was allowing you to sort of use this feature in ways that are not necessarily obvious. So we've enabled the entire context of what the user has typed to be sent, which means you might, for example, have like the ability to use one option as a filter and then a second option as the exact search input that a user might be looking for. And then both of those will be sent to your bot as the user types, not just the option that they're currently typing in. So you have a lot of options with how you're processing this data and returning it. And we also, of course, wanted to leave this open for future extensions to how this data might be presented. For example, allowing images to be shown, sort of like the Giphy and Tenor commands. Yeah, I think that's the high level here. I don't know if there are any questions or not, but yeah.
I think most people get it. Some were wondering about limits on the number of options, I guess, at every layer, right? Maybe we can walk through that.
Yeah, so if you want to upload like static choices like you would do today, I think that's plenty. And with this new model, each time the user types a character, you can return an additional, well, not additional, but you can return 20 options, or up to 20 options, I should say, for them to be shown. So basically, within each completion, you have 20 items. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but because it's, for each character they type, it's pretty um, focused on what what they're looking for. So it works pretty well.
I guess the important thing here is that they on their end they can search through it however many options they want, right? They just have to choose the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to, yeah, on the side of the bot, you could have, as big of an index as you want. You're just returning information that may be relevant. And that can be very a loosely defined on-relevant. We've seen some pretty cool ideas for how this feature might be used in with game inventory systems and stuff. So there's a lot of freedom in terms of how it works. And the options are displayed in the exact order that you return them. We don't mess with that or anything. So you can do some cool stuff.
Very cool. Some people are wondering, what's the debounce on the front end?
Yeah, so it's about I think it's one update every half second. So I mean, as a person is typing words in, that it feels pretty quick. I think one of the main things we want to avoid here is spamming a bot with zillions of these requests. So it's a little bit on the high side for now. I don't think in practice it feels delayed or anything. But moving forward, we're always open to adjusting these things as people use it and have feedback. So
And what is what's the response time that you have to respond to one of those requests?
yeah, so right now the response is the initial interaction callback. So I believe you have 3 seconds. So I think there are some use cases for which that may be really easy. There are others for which you may be more pressed to get data in. For example, if you wanted to aggregate data from another external API, so you will have to treat this as a custom, a special path within your application. If you want, it's a search index basically. So you have to, be able to index that data quickly.
All right. We have a handful of other questions. I think maybe we can start a thread for this, so we just keep the main discussion moving. Does that sound okay to the rest of you? Yes, the people have spoken. Okay. Autocomplete thread incoming. So next, thank you very much, DevSnack. Next, we're going to hear from Voltana, who is completely upgrading the internals of the text editor that we all know and love and use for messaging, which has also enabled significant upgrades in other areas. And I will let her speak about that.
Hi. Yeah, so hi everyone. I am Voltana Shira, engineer mainly focused on working on the desktop client or web client. What my main project this quarter, I guess, it focuses on a lot of internals. I'll try to give you guys a quick history and try to talk about it as much as I can, but I don't think I'll have nearly as much to share. But history of the chat input in general. This component goes back way before I started here. So I may, hopefully I'm mostly right on this. But we didn't always have the what you see is what you get editor that you see today. For quite a while, we had just a normal plain text editor, had a bit of mention support, but not the live Markdown preview you see now. It didn't have mention objects as you typed it. You can actually go back to the old editor through one of the options in user settings, but you don't really want to do that. Some people might. I say you don't. The new editor was built around a really cool library called Slate. It gave us the tools to add those objects as you typed them, preview Markdown, and also all of the components needed to build slash comments. But unfortunately, Slate itself went through a massive upgrade, a full rewrite, really, that while it brought a lot of cool features and bug fixes that I personally was interested in, we were effectively locked to the old version just because of the amount of work it would take to upgrade to their new API. And yeah, it's just not time we could really invest as our team was smaller. But and being locked to the old version pretty much presented a lot of challenges for when we built the slash commands UI, and is why you see it working the way it does today. Just to make sure everyone's on the same page, I'm just going to post a quick GIF of what slash commands look like now, since I realize there might be some non-developers in here. Yeah. So the UI we have today is certainly usable. We've been listening to feedback continuously, and we've made some improvements. We've added some autocomplete types to make it easier to use. And while it's better than it was at the original launch, it's not the best it could really be. A main problem, at least that I see, is that information is spread out all over the place. You type an option and you have to look up and see the description for what you're typing, which is fine, but then you type a few letters and suddenly there's an autocomplete. You have to look even further for that. When you're done typing the value, there's a third place you have to check to make sure that was actually not a bad value you typed and see if there's an error. If there is an error, you have to go back into the option and then see what you did wrong. And that kind of flow makes it feel like you're looking everywhere but where you're actually typing, which is not the best experience. There's also other issues with the current system, such as the whole concept of opening and closing pills isn't very clear to new users. It works for people mainly developers who are used to just tapping through everything, but not the best experience for users. We also don't support multi-line input, which has been a long-standing request from you guys. And things like copy paste start to fall apart as you have more complicated inputs. So yeah, my main project this quarter was to investigate what would the editor look like if not only we upgraded to the latest Slate version of Slate and got the new features that they've added over the last, like, I think 2 or 3 years, but what could we build if we also did a full overhaul of that system? And that brings me to the new UI that I have been building, which I'm going to drop into stage info. There we go. Yeah, so the idea was to build something that was more akin to what you see just in normal forms online. The whole idea of opening and closing fills was removed entirely. The required options to run a command are automatically inserted when you select that command to make it more obvious what you need to run it. We rendered the validation state directly inside the editor where you're typing it. It supports multi-line input now, since that's easier to do since you're actually typing inside an object. And if you look really, really closely, you can see we've also been experimenting with different positions for autocomplete as well. Yeah, I think that is mainly it. I will also be dropping a Notion doc that pretty much covers what I just said, and a bit of extra info around IME troubles with this kind of system.
Thank you, Voltana. Gonna look forward to that Notion doc. I think we have a couple questions around optional parameters, multi-line input. Anything that you want to address now, or should we let the
Oh boy.
doc feature?
I mean, if there are questions, I've probably already missed them. Is there a thread going?
There's not a thread going.
We should make a thread then.
I can talk about the optional parameters really quickly, just because I've seen that come up a little bit. We're still figuring out exactly what optional parameters are going to look like, because the way that Voltana's work happened was that we had this idea to make these things that we're calling editable pills, sort of like these boxes that you can write in that look like little forms. And in doing that, we realized that being so far out of date on Slate was causing us a huge problem. So Voltana became the expert in Slate against her own will. And now that, like, once all of those changes land and we're happy with it, we can sort of go back and look at the slash command pieces in particular, like optional arguments, if that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. She'll post the Notion link. Hang tight, and if you have more questions, head over to the thread. We got to keep moving to make sure we have enough time for community questions. So the last new topic that we're going to talk about today is permissions. We're going to hear from Mason, who spent the last 40 days meditating and fasting in order to find clarity with a new improved application commands permissions interface. So Mason is here to show us and tell us more about it.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction couched in biblical references. Makes this feel very official and important. All right, let's talk about permissions. I'm going to link something in stage info. You will see that mine is a lot more writing. As you go through these links, it's a very fun game of guess who's the PM amongst all of the engineers. So, permissions. We know that what we've got right now is just sort of not quite cutting it. There's a few big questions that we've been trying to solve, design and research, over the past little bit. And those sort of questions and needs are as follows. Moderators need to be able to control who can use certain commands. That's possible in today's system with the overrights of users and roles, but it's hard to access. Moderators also need to be able to control the channels in which people can use commands, which is not possible right now, sort of baked into the Discord UI. A lot of moderators, as we were talking to them, also talked about a desire to want to use more bots, that there are cool things out there, but those developers have not integrated permission systems, and so they can't feel safe using them in large communities. And then finally, developers, all of you, those that we've talked to, and all the ones that have given us so much feedback since the original version, which we really deeply appreciate, need to be able to put sane defaults on their commands so that administrative type commands don't get abused before moderators have a chance to tune permissions. So, welcome to your new application command permissions page. I will say the following designs are all work in progress as we sort of finish up the remaining user testing that we've been doing and design iterations. The problems that we're trying to solve is really the core of it. What actually ships might look a little bit different than what is shown in this doc as we build it and try it and test it with actual people. But let's talk about this. So at the top, when you open up an application in your integrations page, you'll be able to manage access to its commands. You can start by setting roles, members, and channel access on the application itself, which all of the commands will sort of inherit. So by default, applications are available to everyone in all channels. Turning a toggle on grants access, turning it off denies access. So if you wanted to, for example, make an entire application's commands private, you can remove access from add everybody and not, add anyone else. As you can see in the screenshot below, you can also give access to only a few individuals by turning off everyone and adding in specific roles or users. And you can also allow or deny access in specific channels or categories. And they work sort of similar to how overrides work right now. So if you want a command to be available in an entire category except for one channel in that category, you can turn on the category and turn off that channel, for example. Obviously, bots and applications have tons of commands. And you don't necessarily want to manage all of them individually, but sometimes you do. So we have this concept of syncing. Much like channel permission overwrites, an, a specific command can be synced to its parent application. And what that means is that as you go and update MEE6 and change who has access and where, any synced commands like /ban here will change accordingly. And you don't have to worry about making sure that you update each individual one. If you do want to change things specifically because there's a specific set of moderator commands or you just want to have that more granular access, you can go into an individual command and change the roles and members that have access and the channels that have access. And it will then become unsynced, which means that as the parent application changes, the command will not change. As a nice point, this works for slash commands and context menu commands. Those are all sort of under the umbrella of application commands. Plus any other new types of commands that we might add in the future should also just work in this system. I want to talk a little bit about those sane defaults that we talked about. So a huge point of feedback was, as a developer, I need to be able to put sane defaults on my commands. And we're going to do that. The specifics of how this is going to work is not 100% finalized. There are some difficult technical questions to solve to make this work. But this problem is one that we want to solve, and here's our first idea. The default permissions field that's currently on commands is going to be changed. Right now it's a Boolean, which means like globally on or off. And we're going to change it to a string that accepts a bit mask of permissions, like a lot of our other permissions fields. That would be a breaking change. So in current API versions, we might like make a new field and then migrate. That's still to be determined, but you sort of understand the end goal. When you make a new command or your bot is added to a server for the first time, we'll check the roles in the server and create proper overwrites for those commands based on the permissions that you've given. So in practice, what that means is if you create a ban command with default permissions 8, which is the admin bit, when it's made, only people that have the roles that have admin permissions will be able to use that command. Similarly, if you create a secret command with default permissions, I don't know, this ridiculously long number, that command will be disabled for everyone except the roles that have create instant invite, manage webhook, and send permissions, whatever that conjunction of permissions is. And if no one has that set of permissions, then the command will be inaccessible until a moderator goes and changes it. So this way, when your bot is being added to a server for the first time, or you're making new moderation commands, you don't have to worry about that lag time in between the command being made and being accessible and a moderator going and changing it. It should be, pretty default safe. And of course, you can choose not to do these things. Finally, we want to talk a little bit about the general concept of manning permissions as a developer. This system can be done entirely in the Discord UI. So if you don't want to go through the effort of hooking up your own custom permissions, or you might not know how, or you might not think it's important to your application, you don't have to. Moderators and administrators have the freedom to go into these settings and update them however they would like, and you actually don't have to worry about it at all. But if you'd like to, and we know that many bots have extensive permission systems and web dashboards and all of that great stuff, you can change these permissions on the commands as well for your own application. So you can keep things in sync with your web dashboard and what's in Discord. Or if you want to, you can create your own permissions and bucketing system and have them enforced with member role and channel access inside of Discord if you want to sort of use both of the systems together. Yes, finally I can kill my web dashboard. There are some super complex web dashboards out there. I will not pretend that this will necessarily solve all of them, but I think it can solve a good chunk of them. And if that is some work that we can take off of developers' hands, then that's fantastic. The more that you can worry about just making good stuff and less about all of that, I think is a win. We had a Figma link for this with a cool prototype that you could click around in. Last time we shared a Figma link, it exploded. So we aren't able to do that. But as we continue to make updates to this, we'll share more, and maybe we can figure out some sort of way to do some cool beta testing with this when it's ready and built. That's our thoughts on permissions.
All right, thanks, Mason. I'm going to create permissions / command permissions thread in the
I think
stage
somebody
info.
made one already. Permissions
Oh.
questions on stage info.
You're right. Someone else already did it, so we're good. Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the first part of this
Oh.
stage. Oh,
I do
go
see
ahead.
one question. Hiding commands versus having them disabled. In the system, commands will still be disabled, not hidden. That is still on our roadmap and a separate thing that we are going to do. Hiding commands on the back end is a really difficult technical bit of work. And the first thing that we were doing is figuring out what are all of the reasons that we might want to hide commands from people, this permission system being one of them. And once we sort of understood all of that architecture, now we can tackle what is the best way to hide them on the back end. So it won't happen in the same update, but this update directly impacts our ability to do that.
Cool. So, before we move on, just want to reiterate that everything you all have seen here today is work in progress. It's not released yet. Parts of it are subject to change. Parts of it are incomplete. So we're happy to answer questions and clarify where we can, but stuff is in progress. So, with all that behind us, we're going to move over to the Q&A. So a lot of you submitted questions on the Slido, which was in the Discord API announcements channel, as well as the topic in stage discussion. So a couple notes on the Q&A before we get started. Thank you so much for all of your questions. We had over 180. In order to make the best use of everyone's time here, we went through the questions beforehand and tried to avoid duplicates where possible. We got a handful of each for some of the topics that you see in the Slido. So if you don't see your exact question, just know we did see it and add it to our documents where we track them, where we track what we're hearing from all of you and what's important, what's on your mind. We also got a bunch of off-topic questions, which we didn't put through, but we've passed along that interest and feedback to other teams internally that work on the stuff you're asking about, so they know that this community is interested in those features. And then lastly, because we'll only be able to answer a handful here live today, we'll also be posting a written Q&A with responses to some of the detailed feature questions that were submitted. And we'll post answers to like the top 40 or so by the end of the week. I think questions are still open for submission and voting. Just a reminder that when you're submitting questions, we're all human here. We're reading through them. It's a lot easier for us to understand and take in your feedback if it's informative and productive. So with that said, questions page is in the channel topic. I just posted it there, and we will get started. Most, if not all, the questions are going to be answered by Mason. Mason, are you ready?
Let's do it to it. You'll be sick of my voice by the end of it.
Okay. First question is, would you guys ever actually go through the feature requests on the GitHub repo instead of just leaving them in limbo forever? Some do get an official answer, but others don't, and people have to find out about it from a third party or have a pinned issue with all of the approved / denied requests.
Yes. So we actually do go through those somewhat regularly, but we can probably be better about making sure that communication happens more often. Each week after our Monday stand-ups, I believe, we go through the issue tracker side of it first to look for any new bugs that come up to make sure that we're not like missing anything that's super broken. The discussion side of it sometimes gets bubbled up independently if there's some interesting ideas, but we also use that side as feedback for our planning processes. Like, what are the big things that people want? What are some things that we should be considering? What are questions that are being brought up that we haven't thought about? I agree that there are a lot of things in those discussions that sort of just sit there. It's actually for a reason. There are a lot of great ideas that we might just not be doing right now, right? but we don't want to lose them. So we don't want to just close ideas even if they're not happening right now, because they might not actually, like, they might not be bad ideas, they might be good ideas, and we want to make sure that we keep them around and let the community comment on them and vote on them as things change over time and maybe priorities shift. As far as the pinned issues, we've actually attempted to use those as more of a like timeline sort of thing. Like, here's some features that are coming to address this question. They're not intended to be like a replacement, but we do look at these. We do look at them very frequently. We could probably be better about trying to leave comments on them about, this is a good idea, but we can't get to it right now. This is probably not something that's ever going to happen. There's not very many of those. Or, hey, this has been taken in.
Cool. I'm going to try not to say thanks, Mason, because people make fun of me when I say thanks, Mason.
Yeah, maybe one thing that we can do is come up with a like a label on them that sort of says that we agree that this is interesting, but it's not going to happen right now. So we're leaving it open, but it's not actually in limbo.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks, Mason, for that idea.
Thanks, Ian, for telling me thanks.
No problem. So I want to skip. I've been asked to skip down to the music bots question,
Yeah.
because that's something that comes up frequently in DDevs. Question simply: anything to say about music bots going offline?
Yeah. It's certainly been a few weeks, hasn't it? Um, so as you all know, Rhythm and Groovy are unfortunately offline. They acknowledged that they received communications from YouTube asking them to take down their bots, and they complied in doing so. They were breaking YouTube's terms of service by getting audio the way that they were. We love listening to music together, and we know how important it is as a thing that people do together on Discord. Um, Innovation and creativity are really important to us. That extends to our developer community, but also to artists and musicians and all of those folks that have their own rights on things, right? So I guess take this as a soft reminder that much in the way that you consider Discord's terms of service when you're building things, consider the terms of service and the rights of other services as well. Um, that's really all we can share about this. But yeah, it has certainly been a week, and it is unfortunate.
It's been a week.
It's been a week. It's been a month.
Yeah, it's all blending together. Next question is from someone who claims their name is Suspense. Could we get some sort of regular updates on what's being worked on? What bug was fixed? What new feature from GitHub discussions is being considered? Similar to what Mason used to post on GitHub on the /commands master list almost every week.
Yeah, we should definitely do this. What they're referring to for that /commands master list, which some of you might not know about, is that back at the beginning of this year /last December, we launched /commands to a public beta and collated all of the feedback that happened and said, okay, here's all of the stuff that has come through. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's not going to happen and why. And we're going to call this our V1. Doing that for big project things is great, but I sense that it would be even better if we could do it in a more regular cadence. We are definitely looking into ways to communicate these timelines better and more transparently for all of you, and not just necessarily here is the list of things that we are going to fix for this big thing that's happening, but an even more regular cadence of here's the stuff that we're thinking about, and here's some of the small and big things that have happened.
One thing that I'd point out is that the master list that was originally a GitHub issue, we've moved that format over to discussions. So there's that API plans discussion, and that is updated regularly. For those who may not know about it. Next question. Will you consider increasing the amount of /commands an application can have?
We can certainly consider it, but there's no current plans. I don't say that to be a never, but there are no current plans. Um, Two things to consider. One, we still need to do the work to make slash commands and subcommands and groups better, more accessible, easier to use. And once we do that, I think we will find that they are more useful than we currently see them as. The second half of that is a technical problem of if we up the limit to, let's call it 1,000 commands, right? 50 bots in a server, 1,000 commands per bot. Some person on an old Android phone is probably going to have their phone explode in their hands from all of that data that gets sent. Um, so upping limits is not actually there are reasons why these things are in place. And as I sit here with my iPhone 11, whatever, it wouldn't really affect me. But we have a global base of users who have a lot of different devices, and we have to make sure that it works for everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mason. Thank you so much for that answer.
I'm
Next
just gonna
question.
quickly say that I'm working on manually unmuting everyone who got muted for spam. Sorry about that, everyone.
Sorry, everyone. That's what you get for being polite to Mason. Okay. Let's keep moving. Do we have some sort of loose roadmap for upcoming interactions features? Not that we expect hard dates, but just an idea of what's coming next.
Yeah, I think this sort of goes to the previous question of can we share timelines and roadmaps better? We have it in that current pinned GitHub discussion about slash commands improvements, and there are some general interactions, not slash commands specifically stuff thrown in. But as we do Q4 planning, which is starting soon, and as we plan for next year, um, we want to figure out ways that we can be more transparent about what's coming and the stuff that we're thinking about.
Great. Next question is, will there be a sort of date option type for slash commands?
Eventually, yes, not currently in the scope of the stuff that might be happening over the next quarter or so. Um, Using strings for date times is annoying. It's very bad for general discoverability for users, for consistency across how different places in the world write dates. Um, right now, we're focused on the stuff that needs to exist to have parity. But that is a good example of a feature request that is a good idea and it's not happening right now, but we don't want to lose it. Just support ISO strings only. That is a possibility, but you have to consider that I don't even know that I could format an ISO string off the top of my head, right? I would have to go to the internet to find something that tells me what the string is and then copy paste it. Uh, so not a great user experience for people actually trying to use commands.
All right. We got a good one next. Do you plan on taking a more proactive approach towards supporting library developers, or more specifically, Python developers, now that Danny decided to step down? And is there a specific library you think we should shift our focus to now that Discord.py is gone?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's 3 questions in here, so let's answer all of them. Um, do we plan on taking a more proactive approach supporting library developers? Yes. We do stuff to support library developers today, and we do plan to take a more proactive approach in supporting the voices of all of the developers on our platform. Feedback and suggestions comes to us in a number of different ways right now. We have GitHub issues for bugs, GitHub discussions for feature requests. There's public channels like what we're doing here right now and these events to try to get the community more involved and more aware. And we also do have private, dedicated channels that are open lines of communication between Discord and library developers and Discord and large bot developers on the platform. When we launch new features, we proactively reach out to developers in those private channels, asking them for feedback and suggestions and making changes accordingly. I think every feature this year at this point has had communication with them in some way. I might be missing one or two, and I apologize if that's false, but it is like literally part of our rollout and part of our development process to say, here's some ideas that we have, here's the problems that we're trying to solve. What do we think about it? Our vision is to make feedback more public and more open. We know that you want more transparency and to be part of giving that feedback. It's very difficult to do that effectively when we're talking about like going from talking to 30 people to talking to thousands of you. But it's necessary. And events like these are the first step in figuring out how we can do that. Do we plan on taking a more proactive approach to support Python developers specifically? So when we're building things for developers, we're building them in a language agnostic way intentionally. Python isn't the only language that people use, although it's incredibly common, and we of course love it ourselves. We intend to build open APIs that people can wrap in the ways that are most comfortable for them. If there are specific things that we can be doing to help Python development specifically that we aren't doing today, we'd love to know. You can offer those suggestions on our GitHub discussions pages. And lastly, with Danny stepping down from Discord Pi, is there a specific library that we think that you should shift to? I don't have one by name right now. There are a ton of great developers out there, and we want to give them a shout out who are jumping in to help maintain that project and create forks and what the next thing might be. So I think there's a lot of great options, and you should go check out those forks that are being created or new libraries that are being built to see which ones work for you. But of course, we recognize the work that Danny did in building Discord Pi over the past 6 years, whatever it's been. And we hope that the ones that come after can be just as great.
Thank you, Mason, for answering that question. Next up, okay, we have a cute question about the coolest spot that we've seen. I don't know if this is the real Ian, a fake Ian, third Ian, or fourth Ian.
Couldn't have been me. I didn't plant this question. Would I do that?
Mason, have you seen any cool bots lately?
The Game Boy emulator bot with buttons was really cool.
Oh yeah, that was neat. Where did that come from? There was this Game Boy bot. I don't know. I saw it somewhere too. That was pretty cool. It was on Reddit.
What about
Cool.
you? Anything else either you or other Ian want to add? Any other cool things that you've seen with buttons?
There's a Minesweeper bot that Moosh developed that has been probably the singular most popular thing in a bunch of servers I'm in. It's only a couple buttons, but people love that thing. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was gonna shout out the Minesweeper bot too.
That one is really cool. I wish I sucked less at Minesweeper.
All right, nice job, Moosh, and everyone else. Okay, the next question is there going to be a new badge for developers in the future?
Oh God. Let's never say never because God only knows what decisions will be made in the future. I will say we have learned our lesson. Badges are cool. They can be done without causing a lot of problems. The way that we originally did it caused a lot of problems. So I think if there were ever to be any badges for developers in the future, we would need to think really, really long and hard about all of the things that come with it when you give people access to something cool.
Yeah. All right, next question. Is there going to be a new badge for the developers in... Wait, I'm just reading that same one again.
God
Next
damn it,
question.
Ian, please.
I've already had a long day.
It's gonna keep asking me until I change my answer. Is that how this is gonna work?
Okay. Have you thought about permissions for buttons? Sometimes it would be helpful to have buttons enabled, disabled, depending on permissions. Smile.
That's a good question. Right now, buttons are pretty like dumb, quote unquote, as far as state and permissions go. Intentionally, we wanted to leave them more open and see what people did with them. For example, like they're not tied to the u/commands permission because we knew that in many places where buttons might be used for reaction roles bots, you'd want to be able to press buttons when you can't send messages or can't use commands. Um, I'd like to hear maybe more about the use cases for this, and maybe thinking about could this be solved by like ephemeral message buttons and ephemeral messages instead, which is something that can be done. Um, but if there's a need for this or a want for this, I think we'd love to hear more.
Next question. Would we ever see an improvement on audit logs? For example, knowing if a bot deleted a user's message or if it was a self-deletion.
Oh boy, I am not an audit log expert. Um, I think it sounds reasonable. It's not something that I've currently thought of, but I think it sounds like a reasonable request. I guess, yeah, go bother Jake. He built the audit log, right? No, there is some thought to it though that the audit log can get super spammy. I know that, um, and we intentionally try to keep it useful, right? So some of those things can be spammier than you think that they might be, and it's why we haven't made some of those changes. I don't know about this one specifically. I'm not the expert, but there are experts here who you can talk to.
Okay. Next question, probably the last question. Are you working on improving communication between Discord and developers? Recently, very big changes such as the privilege message intent have been rolled out without notice or discussion with us, which will break many, many bots.
Yeah, I think we touched on this a few questions ago. Yes, we very much want to work on improving communication between Discord and developers as a whole. We have communication avenues with library developers and with large bot developers, but when it comes out to the rest of you, it can seem surprising. So much in the way that we talked about timelines and when are new features coming and can we give better roadmaps. Um, we do want to figure out a way to be more transparent with the broader developer community about things that are coming without making it too like thrashy. Like, oh, because priorities change and things shift. And what happens one month might actually get moved to a next month because of reasons. So talking about sort of the big problems that we'd like to solve and ways that we're thinking about doing it, um, I think is valuable.
Okay.
Is there any sort of like last one hiding in the weeds in here that might be interesting?
How was Hack Week?
How was Hack Week? Yeah, let's talk about Hack Week. I enjoyed Hack Week. There were some really fantastic projects. I finally got the time to make to finish up my bot that bridges Figma comments into Discord. Figma is our design software, and you can leave comments in it. But if y'all are anything like me, I'm so used to Discord notifications that trying to read anywhere else is just an impossibility. So I try to bring as many notifications into outside places into my personal Discord channels as I can. So that was a fun project to sort of finish up. Um, maybe we can end it with the you other four talking about what you did for Hack Week.
Sure. Who
What
wants to go
are
first?
what are Discord notifications? I'm not familiar with that.
What do you mean?
I just you have notifications on for Discord? Mason.
Again, we're gonna have a talk after this.
Yeah, so I did a Hack Week project where we took the documentation website and rewrote it in Next.js and MDX, and I kind of worked with some community members to make a more of like a open source version of the docs, I guess. So one of the things that you can do is like you get the preview when you work on it. You don't have to like publish it and deploy it to actually see the changes show up. You can actually see how it looks on like pull requests and things like that, which is pretty nice. Added a light mode, which I know a lot of you probably won't want, but is incredibly important for accessibility reasons. Like dark mode for some people is really hard to read. To the point where like they're not able to actually. So having a light mode is critically important to make the community as inviting and like inclusive as possible. And it also just allows us to do cooler stuff if we wanted to, like embedding other React components within the documentation itself. So like if we wanted to put a button playground where you can play around with all the different options and like actually see what that would look like in Discord, it would give us the platform to do that. I'll hedge this all with, this might never ship. It was just something we did for a week to check it out. But we had a lot of fun doing it, and I think it was really cool getting to work with some community members who were also interested in this, and they participated too, and I had a bunch of fun with that.
Cool.
Who else did a Hack Week thing? I guess real quick, I built a crappy /command builder that maybe one day we can put in the developer portal, like a UI for managing /commands, just to hack.
I worked with a team of people on enabling you to add /commands to users instead of guilds. Who knows if that'll ever ship or not, but it's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
It was very cool. Well, Tana, do you want to share your Hack Week?
I mean, my Slate upgrade was my hack week, so but more like hack month.
There you go. Voltana just worked through Hack Week, but made it happen. All right, folks, we're a little bit over time. Thank you, everyone, not just Mason. We want to do this regularly. We really enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed learning about attachments, autocomplete, permissions, /commands, all the Q&A. Hope that was a little useful. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to follow up on Q&A that we didn't get to. Really looking forward to next time. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.